In Venezuela, the prosecutor's office further denounced the kidnapping of national migrants by the government of El Salvador and the United States, describing it as a crime against humanity. The Myanmar Red Cross reported that the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that shook the country on Friday destroyed 70% of Sagaing city. And in France, a court found far-right leader Marine Le Pen guilty of embezzlement of European Parliament funds, effectively banning the politician from running for office in 2027. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And in Venezuela, on Monday, the prosecutor's office further denounced the kidnapping of national migrants by the governments of El Salvador and the United States, describing it as a crime against humanity. This way, the Venezuelan Attorney General Tarek William Saab condemned the arbitrary detentions by the U.S. government and the criminalization of national migrants, most of whom had no criminal records but were detained, allegedly due to links with the extinct criminal organization Tren de Aragua. Saab further condemned the mistreatment of the Venezuelans who are currently kidnapped in El Salvador at a high-security prison. The General Attorney referred to the kidnapping as a crime against humanity since it intends the discrimination based on nationality in an absolute violation of international law. And on Sunday, the American Civil Liberties Union released the Alien Enemy Law Validation Guide, which confirms that Venezuelan migrants are detained for having tattoos and wearing clothes, not for belonging to gangs or committing crimes. On the same day, a journalistic investigation revealed that the pact between Washington and San Salvador, promoted by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, had its origin in the surrender of Salvadoran gang member nicknamed El Greñas, whose name is Cesar Humberto Lopez Larios. This member of the Mara Salvatrucha MS-13 gang was under federal authority and accused of narco-terrorism. Rubio arranged his exchange because he apparently has information about the Bukele government's negotiations with gang members. Meanwhile, evidence of illegal deportations that amount to human rights violations continues to emerge. And the World Food Programme warns of a growth crisis for children in Haiti. The organization states that about $10 million are needed to feed more than 1.3 million Haitians, especially children. This in the face of the violence unleashed by armed groups in the Caribbean country, causing high levels of hunger and forced displacement. 25% of children under the age of 5 in the country are stunned, with 1 in 6 infants on the brink of starvation. And in Ecuador, a historic agreement was signed on Sunday between Citizens Revolution, the movement of Luisa Gonzalez, who is contesting the presidency of the country, and the Pachakutik indigenous movement, considered the third political force in the country. Details with our colleague Elena Rodriguez.
Manuel Caizalema left his farm in Colta. For today, he is not wielding his hoe, but a flag. He arrived at the central square of Tixan, in Alausi, in the middle of the Andes mountain range. He says that he came to fight for a fair Ecuador.
We have never had help from the government. That's why we want President Luisa Gonzalez to help. To facilitate life to the poor people, the farmers, the people who work.
Hundreds
of farmers and workers came to this square to witness the signing of the agreement between the Citizen Revolution and the Pachakutik movement, the third political force in the country.
We as national political leaders, we are obliged to give our political criteria and our ideological position. We maintain our historical project of 1994, which manifests our anti-capitalist, anti-neoliberal position. Therefore, we will never go with the right wing. Not a single vote to the right.
This
position was evident in this square adorned in multiple colors. Banners of around 75 left-wing parties and movements filled the space that served as the stage for the signing of this unprecedented political agreement.
Desde el gobierno de Lenin Moreno, Since Lenin Moreno's government, Lasso's government, and now Noboa's government neoliberal policies have been applied, in the face of that, we cannot turn our backs on this country. That is why we have decided to generate a process of unity of the left.
Unity and programmatic agreement was defined in aspects such as the fight against insecurity, the elimination of large-scale mining, the reduction of the value-added tax from 15% to 12%, not allowing the privatization of strategic sectors, among others.
Today we say to the whole country, fighting for Ecuador is an act of love for the homeland, for 18 million Ecuadorians. And to love Ecuador is to take care of our peoples.
Ecuatorianos. Y amar Ecuador es cuidar de nuestros pueblos.
To take care of our people, to respect our cultures, and also to heal our wounds.
Sanar nuestras heridas, queridos hermanos.
In addition, they rejected the development of a constituent assembly as proposed by the presidential candidate Daniel Noboa. They maintain that the rights achieved in the current Ecuadorian political charter cannot be rolled back.
Members of the Colombian Education Workers Federation mobilized this Monday in support of the social reforms promoted by the government. The rallies aim to raise awareness about the need to improve working conditions for teachers. In addition, it is expected that for this day, the union organization will deliver a list of demands to the government in which they expose their proposals in order to achieve better working conditions for the nation's teachers. The union argued that Colombia is the country where the people struggle and senators of the 7th Commission get paid, in reference to the committee that sank the labor reform promoted by the government. We now have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Myanmar Red Cross reported that the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that shook the country on Friday destroyed 70% of the Sagaing city. The powerful earthquake left at least 2,056 deaths, 3,900 injured, and 217 missing persons. According to the latest release by the country's State Administration Council information team on the rescue work, the military junta informed that there are specialists from several countries, among them China, Russia, Singapore, India, and Thailand, who are participating in the search and rescue efforts. They confirmed that the situation in Sagaing city was more uncertain as it was a zone of armed conflict. In this context, about 400 Chinese earthquake experts, rescuers, and medics are participating in relief efforts in different parts of Myanmar. The teams have reportedly rescued 6 survivors so far in the heavily affected areas of Mandalay and Nai Chito. In addition, the Chinese government sent on Sunday a batch of goods, including clothes, medicine, and other daily necessities, and another batch on Monday containing materials such as tents, blankets, and more than 40,000 first aid kits. China has pledged to provide Myanmar with close to $14 million in humanitarian aid following the deadly earthquake that struck the country's central region on Friday, killing over 2,000 people and leaving 270 still missing.
Many people died in the earthquake in the area where we live, as well as on nearby streets and Sagaing Hill. The urban area is worst hit, causing the largest number of casualties. Some roads and bridges collapsed completely. Many people were buried under rubber.
The Chinese rescue teams came to help us. They have asked about our situation and needs. They have given us aid and support. Thank you very much. I hope I can express my gratitude to the Chinese rescue teams on behalf of the people in the affected areas.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday threatened to bomb Iran and impose secondary tariffs if the Persian nation does not reach an agreement with the White House on its nuclear program. In declarations to a U.S. media, Trump said that if they do not reach an agreement, there will be bombings as never seen before. In this sense, the president also added the possibility of imposing secondary tariffs as he did 4 years ago. Washington accuses Tehran of enriching uranium to develop weapons, although Iran has stressed that its nuclear program is peaceful, unlike the Israeli one. On the other hand, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian stated that Tehran rejects direct talks with the United States on the issue, pointing out that Iran keeps the door open to negotiations with the U.S. through mediators.
The response by the Supreme Leader to Donald Trump's letter was delivered to the U.S. contact in Oman by our brother, Dr. Abbas Arachi. In that response, direct negotiations have been rejected, but regarding indirect talks, Iran has always been involved in such talks, and the Supreme Leader has emphasized that indirect talks can still continue. We don't avoid talks. It's the breach of promises that has caused issues for us so far. They must prove that they can build trust. I hope this is formed.
And the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, affirmed that any kind of attack against his country will receive a reciprocal and forceful response. During his speech on the occasion of the end of the fasting holiday, Khamenei pointed out that he does not see it probable that the country will be attacked from outside and warned against the call for protests in Iran by sectors supported by the United States. The Iranian Supreme Leader took the opportunity to point out that Israel's genocidal actions against Palestine are committed with the support of the United States. Khamenei's statements come after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Tehran with bombings and tariffs if they do not reach an agreement on the Iranian nuclear program. And in the U.S., auto stocks took a critical hit following President Donald Trump's announcement of permanent tariffs. Europe and Asia are the continents most affected by the significant market decline. Investors reacted quickly to the news, fearing that these tariffs could severely impact the profitability of automotive companies and lead to higher prices for consumers. Analysts also warned that these measures could further destabilize the automotive industry, as many companies rely on global supply chains and imports of parts and complete vehicles. Meanwhile, in France on Monday, a court found far-right leader Marine Le Pen guilty of embezzlement of European Parliament funds, effectively banning the National Rally politician from running for office in 2027. In addition to the 5-year ban, Le Pen was handed by judges a $108,195 fine. Furthermore, the French leader was sentenced to 4 years in prison, with 2 years suspended, and the other 2 to be served outside jail with an electronic bracelet, neither of which will be applied until the verdict on her appeals. Le Pen, together with 24 party members, were found guilty of a scheme to embezzle European Parliament funds by using money destined for Parliament assistance to pay party workers. The years-long scheme reportedly caused losses of $4.89 million to European taxpayer funds. And the Prime Minister of Greenland, Jens Frederik Nielsen, reaffirmed on Monday that the United States will never take over their territory. Such statement had the full support of the newly elected parliament. Nielsen insisted that they didn't belong to anyone, so he sent a direct message to the U.S. President Donald Trump to ensure him he would not get Greenland. Likewise, the Danish government rejected the tone of the White House and its envoys. In this context, the Foreign Minister of Denmark, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, condemned the criticism of the U.S. Vice President James D. Vance. Meanwhile, Copenhagen had offered to reinforce the U.S. military presence on the island. And we have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, we're going to be right back. Don't go away. On Sunday, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society announced the recovery of 14 bodies of health workers. 8 of them were members of the organization, 5 were rescuers, and 1 was a UN worker, all missing since last Sunday following an Israeli offensive on southern Gaza. They were found in the area of Tel al-Sultan, one of the neighborhoods most affected by the conflict in the city of Rafah on the border with Egypt. The organization said the bodies were difficult to recover because they were buried in sand and some had begun to decompose. In a press conference held on Sunday morning before the news broke, the society's president, Yunis al-Hatib, held the Israeli authorities responsible for the safety and lives of the medics.
Medic at the Red Crescent for 18 years. He transported the wounded. He did not transport missiles or bombs in the ambulance. He carried martyrs. He carried the wounded and the sick. That's what he did. He never carried missiles or bombs.
The medical and civil defense crews were executed. They tied their hands and placed their bodies in a hole and covered it with sand. Why? These people should be prosecuted in the International Criminal Court. This should be a priority, not only the hostages. This case should shake the whole world and everyone should be aware of the case of the paramedics and medical crews. They went to provide first aid and they all died at once.
An Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu designated Monday Vice Admiral Eli Sharvid as the new head of the Shin Bet, that is the country's General Intelligence and Internal Security Service, ousting Ronen Bar. Bar was removed from office for conducting an investigation into an alleged corruption case in which Benjamin Netanyahu was involved. The Prime Minister's office commented that Sharvid is the right person to lead the agency because of his extensive experience in the service of the Israeli forces. Meanwhile, the opposition and the people criticized such decision. An Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei reaffirmed the rights of Palestinian people and condemned the Israeli occupation on the Day of Palestinian Land. On his X account, Khamenei stressed that the Israeli occupation regime, which controls the land of Palestine, has no right over it. He further emphasized that the land belongs to the entire Palestinian people, including Muslims, Christians, and Jews, backing up his claim with historical and geographical arguments. In this context, the Hamas Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement opposed to any plan that involves displacement or resettlement of the Palestinian people. In our news on Monday, Russia denounced that the Kiev regime is attacking its energy systems. The defense ministry reported that Ukrainian forces attacked energy infrastructure in Bryansk, causing power outages. The ministry said that an artillery attack on a facility of a subsidiary of the public joint stock company, Rossetti Center, and Bryansk Energo led to a disruption of the high-voltage line in the province bordering Ukraine. The government agency pointed out that the continuous deliberate attacks by the Kiev armed forces on Russian energy facilities show the complete inability of the Zelensky regime to assume any of its obligations regarding the settlement of the conflict. And Pope Francis' Dr. Sergio Alfieri announced that the pontiff showed a truly surprising improvement. Alfieri had treated the Pope from the time he was admitted to the Gemelli Hospital in Rome until today. The medical report indicated that Francis is more animated, recovering his voice and less dependent on oxygen. On the message sent Sunday to his parishioners, the Pope made sure that he is healing from his soul and from his body. In the meantime, Monsignor Rino Fisichella had been appointed to oust the pontiff in the Lenten activities, since the latter has a prescription not to attend public events for 2 months. And it was unveiled on Monday that Pope Francis has approved the canonization of Venezuelan nun Mother Carmen Rendiles, foundress of the Servants of Jesus, who carried out her service in parishes and schools, dedicating herself to those in need. Rendiles was born in Caracas on August 11, 1903, and dedicated herself to the apostolate in the parish from a very young age. She took her perpetual vows on September 8, 1932. Later on, she founded the Congregation of the Servants of Jesus, together with many Latin American sisters. After her death in 1977, she was beatified on June 16, 2018, for the miraculous healing of a young woman suffering from idiopathic triventricular hydrocephalus, attributed to her intercession. With the canonization, Mother Carmen Rendiles becomes the first female saint of Venezuela. At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.